Get us started. I'm so glad you all could join us. My name is Sarah Rubin. I am the Department of Conservation's Outreach and Engagement Advisor. I'm a meeting facilitator and a mediator. I'm going to be providing some light facilitation today. We have a really interesting meeting set up for you. Elizabeth, do you want to go ahead and share the slides? I wish we had a little more time and we could do introductions of everyone. I am gonna have us, if you want to go to the next slide in a second, we'll hand things over to Gabe. But certainly when we do Q&A or comment, we're going to be keen to hear from as many of you who are interested, and then we'll be eager to have you introduce yourself and tell us where you are joining us from. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand the microphone over to Gabe Tiffany, DOC's Deputy Director, for some words of welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Gabe Tiffany. I'm the Chief Deputy Director for the Department of Conservation. And thank you for being here today. Director David Shabazian couldn't be here. He's traveling today. I know he wanted to be here because this project is very important to him, as it is to the rest of us. This is a really exciting opportunity for us to be part of the governor's effort to move California toward carbon neutrality and achieve the climate goals set forth by the legislature and the governor. So we're really excited about this project. Also, the multi-benefit aspect of this project is just really, really exciting and encouraging with our forest health, fire prevention, reduction, risk reduction, and the carbon negative aspect of it. Energy production is really an exciting project moving us forward. We have a great team here that have been really key in putting this, helping us put the solicitation together. And that includes CARB, the Energy Commission, CAL FIRE, the Infrastructure Bank, and the Office of Planning and Research. So I hope I didn't leave any folks out, but if I did, I apologize and thank you for your contributions. That was just really key to have all that great expertise in putting this together. And also, lastly, your participation in this is just really important. I know there was some public comment earlier, but it's really key to have your input on making this program stronger. That's how we make a good public policy and good funding programs like this, is with key input from experts like you all out there who are in the trenches doing this really great work. So thank you for being here. Please provide us with that input. Keep that feedback coming and that conversation stream going both ways. It's really important. And we're happy to have you here, and thank you for being here and participating.
Thank you, Gabe. Really appreciate that. Okay, so Elizabeth, I wonder if you want to take us back to the PowerPoint, and I'll hand this over to you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I appreciate you walking us through this. Thank you, Deputy Director Tiffany. We're really pleased to have you, and yes, all very excited about this program. So I will go over the agenda. We're hoping for a pretty quick presentation by the department and our sibling agencies who are partners on this. And hopefully we'll get you to questions and discussion within an hour, if not sooner. So we'll give a quick program overview. And then, just like we did in the draft webinar workshop, we will do sort of a section by section breakdown of what we're asking, highlighting some of those changes from the draft, talk a little bit more in depth than we did in the draft solicitation webinar about the eligibility timeline and scoring components. And then again, trying to get to Q&A within an hour. So I'm just going to jump right into the program overview. This will be a reminder for most of you probably that we have $50 million awarded in the 22-23 budget. So this year, requirements are that we create, that we fund projects that you create hydrogen and or liquid fuel in the Sierra Nevada, that be produced in the Sierra Nevada using forest biomass from the Sierra Nevada. The fuel produced must be carbon negative. We'll have some information about carbon intensity and the LCA process. And the fuel produced must be used in California. There are no stipulations about what use means, but certainly we know what in California means. This is offered through a competitive solicitation, of which phase 1 is open right now. We released that on September 1st. And it will be open until October 31st. So those applications are due at 5 o'clock on October 31st. And we'll go over that process as well. So some of the biggest changes since the draft, of course, there are more than just that's listed here, but we wanted to highlight the probably biggest, most impactful change that we made was the definition of the Sierra Nevada. So we expanded that definition to, rather than just the boundary as defined in the Sierra Nevada Conservancy enabling statute, that include plus 10 miles out in any direction, of course, within the state of California. We're not going into Oregon or Nevada with these funds. And that it also include a layer, maybe pun intended there, of the geologic definition of the Sierra Nevada as well, which perhaps extends out a little bit further, but more in the southern half of the Sierra Nevada Cascade Range. And then on top of that, we put it in your hands. Are there other considerations that you would like us to think about when we're considering the location of your project? Should it be considered in the Sierra Nevada because of the amount of feedstock you're pulling from the Sierra Nevada, because of workforce location, or building capacity within the community, or other demonstrable investment in the region? So we're expanding our definition and making it more inclusive and asking you to make the case of why your project is located in the Sierra. The percent biomass utilization from the Sierra Nevada, we adjusted that down, understanding that there are some financial investment requirements that simply require more assurity of feedstock supply. And so we are requiring at least 60% feedstock from the Sierra Nevada, but certainly will consider greater percentages, or sort of just the real number of how much feedstock, how much bone dry tons per year you will be pulling from the Sierra Nevada as well. We made the proprietary information section much more robust. Thank you to those of you who provided comment on that. Also are requiring proof of technology viability, and we provide a number of options on that front. And finally, the LCA updates. We clarified that methodology and the system boundary guidelines. So again, per some of the comments that you supplied, as well as experience on CARB side. And then we also, because again, of public comment, we added some parameters to support biochar carbon storage calculations, and clarified that co-production and use of biochar as a soil amendment, or putting it into durable products that will last a long time, that is a potential pathway to achieve carbon negativity. So again, thank you so much for your comments, your advocacy. I hope that you see your efforts reflected in the changes that we've made to this solicitation. So going into, and sorry, the screen is not showing me all of my text here, but so this is the intended activities to be funded. And so, so we're jumping into the solicitation content now. So our intent here with this component of the solicitation is to understand the applicants, your financial request, and how the awarded funding will be used. So reimbursable expenditures include, again, I don't think much of this changed, but feedstock development, engineering, techno-economic analysis, life cycle analysis. I don't think any of this will be new for those of you who are on the draft solicitation webinar. Remember that there are non-allowable expenditures as well. We are not funding the sort of old school incineration technology as the primary technology, understanding that whatever you are deciding to do, it may include some element of incineration, but that cannot be your main technology. We can't fund marketing and business development, certainly contract development. If you are working on your outtake agreements or promoting your product as part of developing an outtake agreement contract or looking for buyers, totally understand that is a legitimate use of your time and resources. But just plain marketing and business development, advertising, et cetera, is not an allowable expense. And then, of course, if you get sued, our resources cannot be used to help in funding that lawsuit defense. Other non-allowable expenditures, of course, exist in the solicitation. So we got a question about this next bullet about not requiring match, but we do want to understand prior investment. So there's a couple of reasons for this. At first, let me clarify what we mean. We're not asking for match from a tracking standpoint. Many times when the state asks for match, we're asking you for demonstrated financial commitment that we will track along with the state's investment, your expenditure of our dollars, of the public dollars. That's not what we're asking for here. What we want is for you in your budget to demonstrate that you have already invested your own money or some investment funds in your technology, in your project, and or that you have a vested interest in this project. We're looking to fund projects that with developers who have already invested time and resources. This timeline is such that we can't see it being productive to fund a project proponent who has not invested any time or effort to date, who is thinking this might be kind of cool, we'll see what we can do with this. We're on a much tighter timeline than that. So we simply want to see in that demonstrated investment that you have done some of the groundwork. And then please connect your funding request with your anticipated timeline, of course. You know, if you're funding permitting, tell us when you expect that to be done, et cetera. So let's see, I'm just seeing a question here about match and what we're expecting as proof. Oh, this is a whole lot of questions. I'm going to come back to that in the Q&A.
That's what I was going to suggest.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'll read it in the meantime.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Sarah. All right, let's see. We'll go to the next slide here. So we were going to ask CAL FIRE, John McCarthy, to present this, but he was not sure he was going to be able to join. John, are you here?
Here I am. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hello, hello. Please feel free to take this one.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm John McCarthy. I'm a forester with CAL FIRE. I'm in the wood products and bioenergy team within the climate and energy program. And just speaking really briefly about what you want to present in your project team. The bullets here are terrific. The reviewers are going to want to see that your proposed team can deliver your project successfully. So show qualifications, put some resumes of your key staff in there and tweak those resumes to address this solicitation specifically. If you're looking to add qualifications to your team, go out and find a partnership. Bring in another expert. Show your relevant experience. Show your experience working together too of the teammates. Show that you're available. We want to know that you're going to have the availability and time commitment and energy to be successful. You can also go out and look and get support letters from your community. Maybe they'll be involved in supporting too, but it could be the community. You could also look for partnerships with upstream and downstream, feedstock suppliers, just everybody that you're going to bring into here to show in your application that you're going to be successful in delivering this. That was all I had to say.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Thank you so much, John. All right. So moving into the community impacts. So as John said, we're hoping for, oh, and I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. As John said, we're hoping for strong partnerships with communities as part of this grant program. And so we are hoping that you spend some time and some real estate in your application talking about the scope of the benefit you expect to see, the opportunity for success, and capacity building, again, with the community who's hosting your project or who you anticipate hosting your project. Is there an economic benefit? I mean, certainly we hope it is as part of the sustainability of the project, but who's included in that benefit? We really are invested as our state agency partners in building rural and localized resilience. So resilience to wildfire, resilience to climate, resilience from a water supply perspective, and capacity in these rural communities. Recognize that we do have some favorability criteria in the scoring set. And that favorability criteria is related to including tribes and or disadvantaged communities in your project. And that's not just saying, oh, we're going to reach out to them and they're part of our consultation. Like, sorry, that's actually required consultation. And, you know, just the fact that you're located in a disadvantaged community may not be enough to get you favorability points. We really want to see active partnerships with these groups for you to get those sort of bonus points, as it were. And that partnership should be represented by a letter of support describing what that partnership will do for that tribe and or disadvantaged community. The co-benefits to the community are also requested in our financial feasibility section. And so you are welcome, when we ask for things that sound like something you've talked before, you're welcome to provide reference to that other section when we've asked for it in a way that you think might look like repetitive. So please just let us know where to find that information if it's in one section rather than another. So describe the co-benefits to the community and again, show that community support. Letters of support, again, as John mentioned, we welcome those from any community, not just tribes or disadvantaged communities. Those, of course, include the favorability criteria. But if you have identified a community as a host site for your facility, we would love to see a letter of support from that community as far as, you know, are they putting anything in the game? Are they providing a facility for meetings, for public meetings? Are they supporting you through the CEQA process? Are they actively participating in OPR's feedstock aggregation effort, and thus, you know, creating more of an opportunity for your project to succeed? We would love to hear about that. So showing community support through a letter of support would be very much welcome. And we're into the solicitation breakdown engineering section. So I'm going to ask Nathan Parker from Arizona State University, one of our support team members, to address this section.
Okay, thanks. Nice to see or be in the virtual space with everybody. So in our engineering section, the big intent here is to understand how well this technology that you are proposing is developed and the progress you've made towards implementation. So we're looking to fund technologies that have been proven at the pilot scale. So if you're familiar with the Department of Energy's technology readiness levels, the technology readiness level 6 or above. If you are not familiar, you should make yourself familiar with that as you fill out this part of the proposal. Some things that you can do to help support this is provide examples of the technology in operation in a place other than California. If there's been developed and operated in a different country, different context, provide that example so we can see that this is not just a sketch on a computer, but is actually something that has been proven to work. Journal articles can also be used for support that this technology is ready at the scale that you're proposing it. We're also, and so that's kind of on the technology side, but on the project side, we want to understand the site, the readiness of the site, how well is that site matched to the technology and the other parts of the engineering that has to be done, what is needed in order to get that site fully in position to provide the infrastructure for the pilot plant to be built. And then describe the impacts to the environment that include air quality, water source, need for quantity of water, any impacts on the soil or water quality. And this is going to be kind of something that we want to see in the engineering section, but some of this is going to overlap with the life cycle assessment as well. And so identifying that within the whole proposal, if it doesn't show up in the engineering but shows up in life cycle, if it's in there, then we'll see it, and that would be great.
Awesome, Nathan. Thank you so much. All right, moving on to carbon accounting. And so I'm just going to apologize in advance that Antti was not able to make it to this particular date and time. Antti from CARB, who was our LCA expert. And so I'm just gonna read what we're talking about here. And you saw some of the LCA section updates, but if you have specific questions about the LCA section, please ask your questions and we will make sure to record those or email the Forest Biofuels email address, and we'll make sure to get those questions to Antti to get them answered. And we'll include them in our FAQ list that will go out sometime next week. So again, with the LCA section, we want to understand your approach to producing carbon negative fuel. So we do require an LCA. Again, with this final solicitation that you have access to now, we tried to be more specific about where the boundary is, or how to show the boundary of your LCA when you do that for your project, and of greenhouse gas emissions too, like what we're considering as part of that requirement. So we totally understand that you are probably at a very early stage in your project. Certainly acknowledging you may be at an FEL1, so you may have invested a significant amount of money, but not be at the point where you will be able to provide a very specific LCA. And so certainly understand that you may need to rely on data or numbers in peer-reviewed literature. Please provide those references if you have them. If you have more specific numbers, please let us know how you came to those. And then of course, we do have some numbers provided, some sort of standard calculations in the solicitation guidelines itself. And you're welcome to use those in this process of refining what you expect your carbon negativity to be, and how you make that calculation. Again, please document those references, assumptions, and please do, we are requiring an actual graphic to show us in pictorial graphical form what the boundary of your LCA will be, and expect that, or is, I should say, what the boundary of your LCA is, and expect that to reflect the actual calculations that you submit as part of the attachment. So apologies that I can't go into more detail with this, but again, we have CARB on deck to help us out with the application review from that perspective. If you need help in developing your LCA or need templates or anything like that, again, please let us know and we will work with CARB to get you the tools that you need. Financial feasibility. Nathan, would you mind coming back online for this one?
Sure. In this section, we are trying to understand whether the project is going to be economically sustainable. So at the point where you are in your progress towards developing your facility, we understand it's going to be in different places for different people, but we want to understand what is the expected pathway to having an economically viable facility. And so one way we are looking to find that is provide a financial pro forma, which is going to give us the kind of expected cost and revenue streams over the course of the life of the facility. I understand, and when the reviewers, but other reviewers will also understand that some of this information is going to be a little bit speculative. depending on where you are. I guess it's always a little bit speculative, but at this point, it'll be a little bit speculative, but we want to know how you came up with those estimates to put into that. In addition to that, what is the business model? How are you reaching out to different markets? Who are your markets that will be consuming your fuels, possibly consuming carbon-negative, carbon-rich co-products, things like where you're going to dispose of your carbon dioxide, if you're doing that, or sell carbon products that are going to be long-lived that go into this. Where are you getting these benefits from? How are you going to get the cost of those calculated, and any potential revenue streams from those as well? This will include both kind of market things that you can sell into a traditional market, but also government credits, those kinds of things that can also provide significant financial benefits to the project. The last point on here that I like to mention is the project co-benefits. And so what are the kind of economic co-benefits from this facility that you're proposing to build? And that should be consistent with what you're saying in the community impact section. So you want to have a consistent story of what is your financial benefits that are going to be going out to the rest of the community, and other factors that might influence a economically viable facility that is going to be beneficial to the communities around it.
Awesome, Nathan. Thank you so much. All right. So finally, this is the last content section on execution. And I will ask Carmen to join me in a moment to talk about feedstock specifically. But in this section, we want you to demonstrate comprehensive planning on the part of your planning team and readiness for implementation. Again, understanding you may not be ready for construction to begin, but that you will hit the ground running once we are able to get into contract to start your environmental, start your LCA, whatever it is that you're asking for funding in this phase 1 process for. Have a pragmatic timeline. And again, we have a very broad membership of our review team. So we will have many folks on board who have had experience in CEQA. And so when I say pragmatic, I mean somebody who's done a lot of CEQA, or NEPA as the case may be, if that's something you need to do, would be able to read your timeline and understand that the timeline that you suggest actually does make sense and is feasible with the deadlines that you suggest. So compliance with CEQA, commitments from project partners, land access. If you have identified a site, which you do not need to have a site identified for phase 1, but if you have identified a site, what is your land access plan or expectation of utilities hookups, et cetera. And then, of course, feedstock is a huge component of these projects. We know in many cases, some of the sustainability concern about these projects is feedstock supply. So Carmen, would you mind joining me here to talk a little bit about feedstock as part of execution?
Sure, yeah. So not much has changed in terms of the feedstock since the draft solicitation, but like you said, we are shifting down the percentage of feedstock that must come from the Sierra Nevada forest residue. So that'll be the required amount in order to be eligible is 60%, but then on the feedstock table, which you can take a look at the end of the solicitation, one of the criteria that will score projects more highly on are whether more of the feedstock comes from the Sierra Nevada forest residue than that 60%. So the idea is basically we're leaving it pretty open-ended, but asking for you to show, sorry about that, where the feedstock is coming from. And then one other thing that Elizabeth alluded to was we're also interested in what percent, or not just what percentage of the feedstock comes from the Sierra Nevada, but also the total amount. So that's recognizing that a larger project or a different project might have a lower percentage, but overall be providing a similar absolute amount of benefit for using forest residue. So we'd like to evaluate projects holistically, not just on percentage but actual amount of feedstock.
Great. Thank you so much, Carmen. And thank you for stepping in. We'd had a conversation earlier about you answering questions. And so this was we had some switches in some of our presenters today. So apologies for putting you on the spot and really appreciate your expertise. Thank you. And then the final bullet here is about considerations for delays. I mean, we all are very, very aware of supply chain issues these days. So expect to see some text regarding how you will deal with that in your application, as well as any other delay. I mean, we've had at least one biomat project site occupied by CAL FIRE for fighting fires, which I know the project implementer, the project developer was happy to do, but of course that contributes to slowing the project down. And so, these projects are located in the Sierra Nevada. And so certainly extreme weather events, wildfires could change your project timeline trajectory. So we want to make sure you're thinking very realistically about about the potential for delay and what that would do to your timeline and what you expect to do about that. So. All right, so now into the sort of nuts and bolts of application. So eligibility, we have left this very open. We are happy to consider applicants of all types, tribes, publicly traded companies, privately owned companies, public agencies, local governments, JPAs. We are really, one of the things we're hoping to get out of this solicitation and our investments in this is a look at the diversity of implementing entities and what the benefits and maybe costs are of different types of governance strategies. So we are really just looking for, as we mentioned earlier in this presentation, I think John mentioned, as far as the project team, really we're looking for your track record of success. We want to see that you're collaborating interorganizationally, and we want benefits to accrue to your host community. And to understand how all of those things will be accomplished. Do remember, this isn't part of the main sections, but the attachments 1 and 8, the application form and the applicant declaration are required elements. All of the attachments are certainly, but the form and the declaration are really important components that aren't covered in the individual sections that are outlined in the solicitation. They're in another component or another section, I guess, of the solicitation. So don't forget those two attachments. And then please do keep in mind the pass-fail criteria, one of which is the signing of the applicant declaration. And then of course the other is meeting the eligibility criteria outlined in the guidelines. Application preparation and submittal. We did not, you will notice, require any kind of font or margins or text requirements. We are trusting that you will supply us with an application that we can read at 100%, on our screens and not have to, make it huge to be able to read it. We expect the narrative to be presented in the order described in section 2 so that it'll be easy for us to find. And we expect that all of the attachments will be presented as described using available templates and the file nomenclature described in, I believe it's section 3. When you have completed your application, congratulations, and please email your application to our program email address there on the screen. And then again, we did increase the detail provided in our confidentiality section, section 1.8, as far as how to convey information that you would consider a trade secret or confidential. This cannot include the entire application due to public availability requirements. As a public agency using public funds, of course, these will become a matter of public record. But if you have trade secrets, we certainly understand and can accommodate those if you comply with the outlines the outline provided in section 1.8 of how we can keep that confidential. And now to questions. If you have questions about the solicitation, if there are technical questions, how to comply, etc., those are due to us by September 22nd. So by the middle, I think that is, of next week. And we will issue an FAQ document in the following week, which will be sent out to our listserv, as well as posted on the program webpage. If you have non-technical questions or corrections, errors that you see in the solicitation, logistical questions, we have no deadline for those. So please feel free to send us those questions if you have them, no matter the day or time. Do note that in the solicitation, we described that we reserve the right to take up to, I think it's 5 days to answer those questions. We should be much quicker than that, but just keep in mind, don't wait until the last minute to put this application together. We will be much more able to help you, and you will be much more able to be nimble in your response to those questions if you start sooner rather than later. And so the fun part, award timeline and phasing, the application deadline again is October 31st. So month and a half-ish. We expect to take 4 to 6 weeks for review. We understand that that might feel like a long time, but that is much more quick of a review than many similar processes in the state. And we hope to accomplish this through, again, our wonderful partnerships, some of which you heard here today. We have a list of we should have a list of recommended awards in early December. We do have a mandate as part of our statutory allowance to send that to the Joint Legislative Budget Committee when that is complete, and allow them 30 days to consider that. So we'll have a list of recommended awards in early December, but won't have final awards until that 30 days is up. So in the first or second week of January, we're hoping that we'll be able to finalize that award list and begin contracting. Contracting can take a couple of months sometimes. We will do our best to expedite it. We have a brand new team member who I believe is listening into this webinar today, who we're really excited to get to help out with this process. And I know she's excited to learn more about these really groundbreaking projects to help the state of California meet so many goals. So we're looking forward to getting this moving as quickly as possible. Unlike some other awards, our funding will not, once the award list is final, we don't allow you to start spending on the award for reimbursement even until the contract is signed by all of us and the Department of General Services. So I apologize, we will work as quickly on the contract as possible, but just know that even once the awards are final, again, maybe the first or second week of January, that doesn't give you a green light to start spending at least the department's money. Certainly, if you have other resources, please expend those on any timeline you wish. But as far as the department's public funding, those will only be allowed to be expended upon contract execution. And then we do expect awardees to expend those resources within 12 months. So we can talk about what that looks like if the contracting deadline or the contracting execution is pushed out too far. But what we would like is to move into phase 2 application and award in December, January of 23-24. So we understand that that timeline may give you less than 12 months with these funds, but we will be in communication and coordination with those awardees as far as what they see as a feasible timeline for phase 2 funding, which, just to remind you, you don't have to be a phase 1 awardee to apply for phase 2, but we want our phase 1 awardees to feel as though they'll be competitive in that process. And so we will be in conversation with you about that timeline. All right, the meat and potatoes, scoring, ranking, and awards. So applications will be scored according to the tables provided in section 6. Certainly, we will have more detail on our end to standardize that scoring process. But for your consideration, please remember that that pass-fail criteria must be 100% passed. I believe that's table 5 in section 6. The core criteria is table 6A, I believe, and your application must receive at least 75 out of 100 points available in that table to be eligible for award. So we'll first review the pass-fail criteria in just the first few days of your application, and we will only score the applications that meet that pass-fail criteria. So then we'll look at the core criteria. Again, expecting applications to receive at least 75 points there. If an application does not receive 75 points in the core criteria, no matter how many favorability points you get, you cannot be eligible for award. So definitely make sure that you're meeting the core criteria. And again, that's in section 2 of the solicitation guidelines. The favorability criteria, you'll note, upon reading those, emphasizes areas that the DOC wants to incentivize. So again, that's partnerships with tribes, partnerships with disadvantaged communities, that's creating fuels that help us in long-term, the meeting of our long-term goals to carbon neutrality. So if you have any questions about what those require, the favorability criteria, I know some of those we provide a little less detail on. We're happy to answer additional questions about that as needed. The reason that we included favorability criteria, just as some background and transparency, is because we understand that applicants for these funds may be at very different stages in project development. Again, there may be an applicant who hasn't yet chosen a project site, but who has technology that will get us to carbon neutrality like next year. Maybe that's a little optimistic, but that's kind of what we were thinking. You know, we want to be sure that we're providing as many opportunities as possible to cast a very wide net in this space. Finally, applications must receive at least 90 out of 140 points to be eligible for award. So this means that if all you're doing is the very most basic core criteria, but you do a really good job at meeting that core criteria, then you still are eligible for an award if you get at least 90 points in that section. If you get 75 points in the core criteria, but you are partnering with a disadvantaged community, or you know, you have a huge portion or a huge real number of bone dry tons of Sierra Nevada biomass that you're utilizing, you still would be eligible for award. So again, the point is to cast a wide net. So again, all applications passing these expectations will be ranked for award, and the department expects to award about 8 grants of about $500,000 each, or up to $4 million in phase 1. Certainly, if there are 10 amazing applications, we may grant a little more than $4 million. Or if we see fewer than 8, we may grant less than $4 million, in which case any residual funds from phase 1 will move into phase 2. So a little bit about phase 2, and then I think I'm gonna stop talking because it's been a lot, sorry. The phase 2 solicitation will go live, we hope, in winter 23-24, with awards for implementation in January, February 2024, and following that, the contracts, of course. That 30-day window for Joint Legislative Budget Committee will still apply for phase 2 awards. The awards will be contingent on the stage of development. So we're looking for projects that can implement within, at that point, a 3 to 4 year window. So being at FEL 3 at that point would be a serious advantage, for example, or describing in detail of how you're going to get there really quickly. Again, a significant advantage. So these resources for phase 2 specifically will be released to the awardee based on sort of stage gate successes. So if you've built your own house, you probably remember getting a construction loan that the bank would release in stages to your contractor based on particular success metrics that were gauged by the building code inspector. So we're structuring this in a very similar way. And we, in this case, though, will ask you to determine what those stage gates should be and how you would suggest we measure your success. So we're giving expect to give a lot of flexibility in stage 2. So let's see here. finally, yes, that last bullet, we expect to release the guidelines for phase 2 so that you kind of know better where you're aiming mid next year. We want, again, for this to be a very public process. We want your input, both phase 1 awardees as well as those who maybe didn't even compete for phase 1 to contribute to what phase 2 should look like. So yeah, that's our timeline expectation for that. And then I know our Deputy Director, Tiffany, gave a great shout out earlier, and I just want to reinforce that we would not be able to have developed this solicitation probably at all, but not to the degree of detail and robustness that it is without our partners at Natural Resources, the Cal EPA, OPR, the Governor's Office of Planning and Research, iBank. Lots of great partnerships out there, and this sector is really exciting in that it's presenting more and more of those opportunities. So couldn't do without you all. So thank you, agency team. And we will move into Q&A at this point. So I will turn it over to you, Sarah.
Great, thank you. All right, so we want to welcome as many questions or comments or thoughts as you all have. That's what we're here for. We've got 2 questions in the Q&A so far. I'm gonna read them. The first one is from Sutton. So there's a few questions. I'm gonna do these one at a time, and then panel, you all can be adding in. So the first one is, can you elaborate more on the matching and what you're expecting as, quote, demonstration of application investment, unquote, for proof? All right, can we start with that one? Who should take that?
I can start with that, and I will ask Graham if I am inconsistent with your expectations. Please let me know. So more detail on the match requirements. So if you have applied for a state of California grant previously, in most cases, match is required. That match might be in the form of cost share. So it might be a project partner giving you a site. What's the value of that site? That is a number you would put into your spreadsheet, your budget spreadsheet, so that and with some detail of where that's coming from, so that we could see, you have a very active project partner who's giving you landscape, giving you real estate for your project. Your cost share also can be represented by money. That's really more what we'd expect with these projects. And so that might be represented by an iBank loan from the Catalyst Fund. It might be represented by a Department of Energy grant. That kind of information in round numbers. We don't want to see exactly what that's all going to, like the literal nuts and bolts. That's not what we're looking for. We're really just looking for what's your skin in the game. What other avenues are you pursuing? Because we know that there is no way you're going to build a successful project just with DOC money. So what else are you pursuing? You're welcome to list anticipated funds as well.
Sutton, I'm wondering if before we go to the next one, did that answer your question?
Yes, no, that was a great answer. And apologies for all the questions too. I think some of them were answered in the call. I just sent them all at the start. But yeah, that was a perfect answer.
Well, since you're on the line, let's just go over the other ones that maybe you still want to ask. Let's see.
Sure.
And it's probably helpful for other people to hear these. Let's see. Do we need to provide site ownership for phase 1? Can an LOI from co-location count? What's expected level of detail for items to be funded activity section? You tell us, Sutton, what's most useful now at this point?
Yeah, I think for the to be funded, just I had some questions around the level of granularity you would like us to break out line items for that, or can we keep it in higher level buckets by function, or do you want kind of specific, very specific activities tied to almost what could be seen as like invoice line items?
Gosh, Sutton, that's a really good question. My inclination is to say round up. Give us, if you expect to spend $300,000 on your CEQA, just put that in there. Don't break it out by all the different sections of CEQA or this much to outreach, unless that's something that you want to highlight. If there is something extraordinary about your CEQA expectations, certainly you're welcome to break that out. But I would suggest that larger numbers will allow all of us to be more efficient in managing these funds. And I'm just going to remind Graham that I'm happy to be corrected on this if that is incorrect in any way.
No, it's all good, Elizabeth. Yeah, these are good answers.
Perfect. And then the last question is super quick, but for the attachments that you guys provided templates for, are there, do you have Excel or Word versions of those that we can fill out, or can we recreate them in those just to populate them?
Absolutely. You are welcome to recreate those. Yeah, I'm thinking some of them are PDFs that maybe would be more helpful if they were fillable. Yeah, you're welcome to recreate them. And I'm going to talk with Nicole, our brand new staff person on this program, and we can figure out how to get you something maybe that's more useful in some circumstances. So Sutton, if there are particular attachments that you have greater interest in making more interactive, could you like put it in the chat or email me or whatever, and we can start with those.
Will do. Thank you so much. That's it for me.
Thanks, Sutton. Okay, so Erica needs a link. She couldn't find the map. Did you see that one?
Yeah, so the map for the geologic definition of the Sierra. Yeah, we don't have a GIS layer to my knowledge of the geologic definition of the Sierra. And I think it's because for all of those geologists out there, maybe as much an art as a science in some cases. So yeah, find a map that, if that's a definition that you want to use, I would say find a map that you think is useful and that we would consider accurate, you know, not an art student's rendition of the Sierra, but something from USGS or California Geologic Survey, certainly. I apologize for that general reference, Erica, but yeah, it's because we don't have anything really specific. If that's, you know, if you end up Googling that, there are a lot of different interpretations out there. So apologies, and also another opportunity to add flexibility to your application.
Okay, thank you. Next, can we post the fire feedstock plus new fuels reduction qualify? Oh, can a post-fire feedstock plus new fuels reduction qualify? Okay, I read it wrong first. That's from Charles.
I'm going to ask Carmen to answer that. If you're in a place you can do that, Carmen.
Or Chuck. Thanks, Chuck.
Yeah, sorry, could you repeat the question one more time?
Sure. Chuck, I'm also gonna get you unmuted. Chuck, can you see? Oh, good. You have your hands up. Can you talk?
Yes. we can.
Okay, you go for it. You explain it.
Well, we're looking at a project in which is post-fire, but it also has continuation of fuels reduction of not post-fire feedstock. Will that qualify for a project?
You mean there are areas within the burned area that still have unburned fuels?
Yeah, both burned and unburned fuels.
Yeah, I think if it's within a recent fire footprint, but there are unburned fuels that you can justify would reduce wildfire risk, that would count. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, our next question or comment comes from Glenn. I think, Glenn, you should be able to come off mute.
Very good. Can you hear me?
Yep, you sound good.
Okay. So I definitely want to start out just thanking you. Like, I love the way this program is going to break down paradigms around wildfire management. As you know, the renewable fuel standard has been discouraging the use of forest biomass, and so now you've created an opportunity. So we love it. So my name is Glenn Fuller. I'm at Kern Oil and Refining. We've been operating in our community for about 90 years. We're located in the southern Sierra Nevadas, and we have been one of the early adopters of renewable diesel production, and so second in the nation. We've been doing it for about 13 years, about 50 million gallons, and it means that we've helped the industry rummage through all the difficulties. There's nuances when you do something different, and there's a big struggle and kind of with the industry. And now the industry's kind of good with using fats, oils, and grease as a feedstock. And so now we're looking for what's next. And we think forestry biomass is still a lingering question. What we are trying to solve is we're trying to be the connection. We're trying to connect across the technologies, the sectors, the domain expertise. And we think you might be able to help. So of course we're going to submit an application under this, trying to bring together as many people as we can. But I'd be interested in knowing, would you really be willing to kind of actually help us connect with anyone that's also looking at doing something in the southern Sierra Nevadas? We obviously could have very independent applications that have some kind of partnership separately or some type of offtake agreements or something like that. But we don't know what we don't know, and there's likely we're working in the Kern Valley quite a bit. We have a bunch of different resources there, but there's probably somebody or something that needs help in processing and getting it into biofuels. And so we're an open book here. We really want to just express our thoughts on what technologies we think are working well and which ones are maybe having struggles, and take the input from anyone that's willing to provide it to help us inform our thoughts. And so we hope that this program starts working with all the other programs. There's DOE Office of Clean Energy Deployment. We got Bioenergy Technologies Office, all the California Energy Commission stuff. Everything's coming together. And any bridges that we have, or if anybody that I can contact to help make those bridges, I definitely utilize it. So that's kind of where I'm at.
So we did some, I've just been calling it matchmaking early in the process, Glenn, as far as having a developer need a site, and we have public agencies who have a site, but not the technology or a developer or, other things. And, certainly that's something we're happy to do. At this point in the process though, and I just kind of breezed through it on that last slide, we don't necessarily want to upset the competitive edge that a company may or may not have with specific conversations about the solicitation.
Yeah.
So we can't do that at this point. But if that's something that you're hoping to do in the effort of pursuing a competitive application for this solicitation, I would encourage you to talk with some of the industry advocacy groups out there, such as the Bioenergy Association of California. That's always my go-to, just because they've been pretty effective in this space. And certainly going to groups like CSAC, the California State Association of Counties, or the Rural County Representatives of California, that might get you some information specifically on local governments that have started to talk about this. In your area, obviously, I think it's BK3, the Bakersfield, Fresno group would be a good one to talk with. But yeah, so I'm sorry that, we've tried to put up some guardrails for ensuring the competitiveness of this process, but I hope those are helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's weird because we're not viewing everything as competition. Like we're just in this weird position where we're right next to the Sierra Nevadas. We're small enough to where like these early technologies, like this biomass conversion is hard. It's, there's a reason why it's just at the edge of development. And so we're like small enough to where like what's not interesting to a large refiner is significant for us, and something that within our range of management. So we don't feel that like what we're offering is more like kind of support. Like, how do we get this happen? Like if you have a product and you don't have an offtake, it's hard. Like and so maybe we'll just wait till the awards are announced and look for people that have some funding, or we're looking for funding and maybe just needed a little bit of extra to finally complete their picture.
Absolutely. And our applicant list will be made public also, Glenn. So not just the awardees, but all of the applicants. So that should give you an even broader array of options on that front.
We're pretty connected with the industry, academia, with the national laboratories. And so we have a good sense with most stuff, but every once in a while we hear about something that's a lot further along than we thought, and we could have been helped sooner. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we do not have any more questions in the Q&A, and I don't see any hands raised. Would anybody else like to comment or ask a question? Okay, Ephraim, here you go.
Hi there. Thank you for taking my question. Yeah, I had a question with regards to benefits to disadvantaged communities. So I know in the solicitation, it defines disadvantaged communities by the household income of that area, and there's a map there, and it's very helpful. I was wondering if there are any other communities that would also be considered disadvantaged for this project, whether it be racial minority or mental health or really any other criteria, or is it strictly just for the household income?
Yeah, that's such a good question, Ephraim. So we started off this particular conversation with including the disadvantaged communities, which is defined in statute, California state statute, as well as environmental justice communities, which are defined in the screening tool. I forget the name of it, but Cal EPA puts out a screening tool for EJ communities. And we removed reference to that just because there's no EJ communities as defined in that screening tool in the Sierra Nevada. Like none. It's only disadvantaged communities defined under that particular statute. And so I would say that if you are using a definition of the Sierra Nevada, which includes, potentially going further down into the valley, and the community that you're in or that you expect to benefit from your project would include an environmental justice community, or I guess on the contrary, a project that might harm an EJ community. Hopefully we won't get any of those. We would want to know about that too. So you're welcome to use the EJ screening tool as well, if that's something that would be helpful to you. It's just simply that there's none of those communities in the Sierra.
Okay, terrific. That's very helpful. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, can I just call you right back? I'm just finishing up a major webinar on a major forest project. What's your number there?
Oh, you know what? I'm gonna mute him. Sorry.
Oh, all good.
Okay. I thought he was talking to us.
That's what I thought.
I have another question I could ask.
Go for it.
Okay. Yeah. I apologize. I didn't catch the first few minutes of the meeting, so maybe you already addressed this, but from what I recall from reading the solicitation, it mentions several different agencies or departments involved in the review process. I was wondering, do you have not a list of the people doing it, but rather the departments or agencies that are involved in the reviewing process?
You mean in the like the actual scoring, technical scoring process? Yeah. Actually, it's the same as our solicitation development. And so I'm just going to share my screen again, and that list is right here. So, and actually at this point, I should add the CPUC to this screen as well, because one of our partnering individuals actually just moved to the CPUC, and they have been a pretty important part of our process as well. So,
Terrific. Thank you so much.
yeah, absolutely.
All right. Anybody else? Oh, wait, here's is it Delia? Am I saying that correctly?
Unmute. Actually, well, that's Delia, but look, this is Donald Taylor, actually. So in any event, I have a quick question about an offtake product. The solicitation says the product has to be used in California. We're contemplating producing a liquid fuel that will be used as a shipping fuel in ports of California. So it'll be sold at the point of departure in a port. Is that a California use? So it'll be acceptable?
I'm going to say yes and ask Graham to come in and corroborate or refute.
I sort of missed it, so it's it sounded like it was, but what is it, your hesitation with that? Maybe if I throw it
Well,
back
I'm just,
at
you know, I'm just thinking they're using the fuel, like, for example, in a green shipping channel between Los Angeles and Shanghai, say.
you.
So the fuel isn't used in California, it's sold in a California port. I just wouldn't want to stumble and find out somebody said, oh, not used in California. But this, you know, otherwise.
Yeah, I feel like if it's being sold and, you know, it's going to the port in Los Angeles and then going from there, so it's not so much, yeah, it's so you're talking, it's transportation, and the transportation might be happening outside of California, but it's maybe a California product being sold in California. That's probably okay.
Okay.
But that's an interesting one. Yeah, it's a little bit of an interesting question just because it's transportation, you know, and so it's happening somewhere else. But I think tying it back to, it's, you know, you're selling a product generated in California and selling it in California. I think that would count.
Very good. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Nathan. Anybody else interested? Oh, there we go. Chuck, you're up. I think you're unmuted. There you go.
I am.
Yeah.
On that same note, if the fuel is used in the process of fuels reduction within the state, is that considered the same as if it were sold somewhere in the state? The idea being that if you produce fuels at the site where the activity is going on, you're dealing with a great deal of emission reductions. So I guess my question is that an acceptable sale concept?
I'm sorry, Chuck, you said if it was sold for use on site?
If the feedstock is being produced into liquid fuels, biofuels that can be used on the site for restoration and resiliency efforts, is that the same as a sale to independent sale to somebody?
I mean, based on conversations we've had about a developer creating hydrogen and then utilizing that hydrogen on site for another application, I would say yes. Graham, do you see any problem?
Yeah, I think that's fine too. It's not so much that there has to be some kind of a sale. That's not, you know, it's not required. It's a California use. And so I think what you're talking about is probably fine as well, if I'm understanding.
Thank you.
I think that can get interesting. I mean, especially with hydrogen, because you might do something do lots of different things with hydrogen on site. And if it's an intermediate product, I think that's something that we should get real good clarification on.
Do you want to, Nathan, provide a little bit more detail on what you're thinking on that front? Because I think folks will have questions about that. I think that's really interesting.
Well, so, I mean, here's some weird answer. You do a gasification project and you make hydrogen, then you use that to make ammonia. And then that ammonia is going out to be sold for fertilizer somewhere else. So would that count? but it's because it's the end product from leaving the facility is not a fuel. Because you can make all kinds of things with hydrogen.
Mhm.
So I think that there's some.
Mhm.
This is just like me thinking out loud
Yeah.
with that question brought up, and so maybe this is a discussion we should have offline and provide clarification.
Right. And I think what at bare minimum, what we want is for applicants to describe what they're, to describe all of that very clearly to us. I think, Nathan, if we got something like that, we probably would have that discussion internally, but the key is for applicants to really describe, where it's being used, what they're doing with it, and what's being produced. I think that is the first step, right?
Okay.
Anybody else? Question, thought? You've got us here right now. Otherwise, you're about to get a bunch of time back. Okay, Ephraim, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry to bring it back around. I
Yeah.
just had another question with regards to the community. So in our brainstorming of ways of collaborating, capacity building, we've brainstormed a lot of kind of traditional ideas and non-traditional ideas, and kind of the next step as we continue to prepare this proposal is trying to look at what has been done previously and what is like been done effectively perhaps in the area. And so we need to do our own research on this end, but I was just wondering, as we enter into that, is there anything that you've seen been done by a program that you oversaw previously, or something done in the Sierra Nevada that did really well in collaborating with the community or affecting real change? Or obviously this is something that we'll research on our own, but I just wanted the first step to see if you had any examples. I know in the solicitation it mentions a few things to be done, but I wondered if you had any kind of real world sampling of things that have been effective in the past.
That's a great question, Ephraim. And I see that Rizaldo is here. And Rizaldo, I hate to catch you off guard. Rizaldo works for the CEC and has been integral to our solicitation development and will be central to our scoring and review. And of course, the CEC has done a ton of projects on this topic and of energy development anyway in communities. So Rizaldo, I wonder if you might be able to provide some examples of what good community involvement looks like.
Hi, Elizabeth. Yeah, okay. So I didn't catch the whole question, but it sounds like you're asking for example of what a community involvement would look like. It really varies depending on the project. Quick examples I can have are our biomass bioenergy projects, where the primary entities involved in the project are really community organizations, community entities who are collaborating with some project developer in putting the bioenergy project, constructing it and operating it, and connecting with other entities for the feedstock and other vendors that may go to the community. That's for the bioenergy. And then of course we have a lot of different efforts of the energy commissions that are really directly connected to different communities, disadvantaged communities, under-resourced communities, be it in terms of getting direct support on different energy related or energy efficiency projects, or those kind of things. And we do have a website, like energy innovation website, that can help identify those. So yeah, it varies. It could be that communities are participating in terms of identifying the technology, identifying the feedstock, and the uses for the products that are being developed out of the project.
Great. Thank you so much, Rizaldo. Appreciate that. And I put a website in the chat of the CEC's Biomat project. If that's not the right one, Rosaldo, feel free to correct that. But we can also get you information later, Ephraim, if you'd like to email us for more examples.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I'll just comment that is a list of biomass from the CPUC, but certainly the projects being supported by the CEC are also included in that list. So it's a really comprehensive list of different biomass projects.
Thank you, Rosaldo. Sorry about that.
Not a problem.
All right, Donald, your turn.
Yes, good, good, thank you. Rosaldo, hi, Donald. I have a question. Obviously, there's the proposal or in the solicitation, there's indication that we should cooperate with the Indian tribes, the tribal communities. In the past, is the permitting really expedited under those kinds of circumstances? We always heard various things about opportunities to work under the federal rather than state permitting in certain aspects. Does that make sense or not, I guess? To actually locate on tribal lands that are, designated as tribal lands in the Sierra, collaborating with one of the tribes specifically.
You want to take that, Graham? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know just a little bit. I mean, the only thing I can really speak to here is just to confirm for everyone that, I mean, as a state agency ourselves, we're still bound by CEQA at minimum here.
Mhm.
And so that's not, when you're, perhaps if you are, and this is where I don't really know what the answer is, but if you're obtaining permits and you're using tribal land, it's possible. So, you might not be going through the normal permitting process with a county or something like that, where, your CEQA analysis is going to be a part of that permitting process. But you're not going to get around it in terms of us. Like we still need that to be done. So, we're kind of thinking in most instances, if you're dealing with CEQA, there's like a lead agency that's the main one that's, going to review a project for environmental impacts and kind of be that lead agency. We're thinking that in most cases that would be a local agency, it'd be the permitting agency, maybe not always, but that in most cases, Department of Conservation, we would be what was called a responsible agency.
Mhm.
And we'll sort of look at the CEQA compliance work that's been done for your permitting process. So again, it's a kind of maybe a little bit of a unique situation from a grant, and getting funding from the state and all that. Whereas in some cases, yeah, it might streamline your permitting. But with us and with this particular setup, we still need that CEQA work to be done.
Okay, good, thank you. I've gone through the permitting process in Yolo County for a biomass research facility. And it did take under 2 years, I think, but it was, it definitely is a costly effort and it did take some time for certain. So I had thought maybe, the tribal path would be a benefit, but the other path that works too. Thank you.
You're on mute, Sarah.
Sorry. Okay. This is your last chance. Otherwise, we're going to start wrapping up our meeting. And Elizabeth, I wonder if we want to pull up the slide that's really pretty where we thank all our partners. We're definitely grateful for everybody's time today. That's the one. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Yeah, we are just super grateful to all of our partners who have helped out in this process, many of whom are here right now, and many of whom actually weren't able to join us today. Some of whom just simply provided comments in passing, and some of whom really dug in and wrote entire sections. So just really appreciate our agency partners, and I hope that you all who are participating in the webinar today see that reflected in the solicitation, and that it recognizes work that other agencies and departments are doing, doesn't trample on other agencies and departments' authorities, and in fact enhances that collaboration, and thus enhances the implementation of forest management and biofuels creation and utilization in the state. So we're just really grateful to our partners in this process. And I am just gonna put up, I think, yes, our email address. So if you don't already have it, please write it down: DOC Forest Biofuels Pilot at conservation.ca.gov. That is the best way to get in contact with us. We will check this regularly and get back to you again within 5 days, hopefully much sooner, if you have ongoing questions. We will create an FAQ based on our conversation today, as well as with any additional questions that you send our way, without tagging or identifying those who are asking the questions, if that is of concern to you. So yeah, we appreciate you being here today, and appreciate your interest in the program, and we look forward to seeing your applications. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.